Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all over the world about parenting, good communication, how to build strong family bonds, child development, and education, all through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we're talking about how to discipline a high anxiety child. I have worked with a lot of anxious children over the years. I raised 4 children of my own. I'm now a grandchild. And all children have a level of anxiety to some degree, but also I did therapeutic treatment care for troubled teens for many years. So youth ages 12 to 18 who are often neurodiverse, had trauma in their backgrounds, had higher levels of anxiety would come to my home for treatment. And so I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to anxiety, and I do know that it is possible to discipline a person who has higher levels of anxiety and have them be okay with it. But it's all in the pre-teaching. What's pre-teaching? We're going to be talking about that. But first, I want to give you some helpful insights about anxiety that you might not have thought about before and share with you some stories about anxiety that I think will be beneficial. Then we'll get into the how-to, and I've got a free gift for you at the end of this video. Like I said, everybody has some anxiety. That's part of being human. It's just what we're anxious about, when it comes in, how often it happens. Now, we could spend a lot of time talking about why we are experiencing so much anxiety in our culture. I don't have time for that. I'm sure there's other videos on this channel where I have discussed the why of anxiety before in other videos about anxiety, so you can look at those. But right now, let's just get into understanding a key difference that you need to know. And that is that there's anxiety and then there's defiance. And there is a difference between anxiety and defiance. And some people use anxiety as their excuse for defiance. And so I hate to even bring that to parents' attention, because they're like, but if it's really anxiety, or if it's not, how am I going to know? And I don't want to be insensitive. We should be sensitive. We should be understanding to the fact that a person has maybe anxiety, or that everyone has anxiety. And sometimes it's hard for them to get themselves to calm down in certain circumstances. We can be understanding about that. There are some people that ruminate on things a lot. They overprocess. They have a hard time getting their brain to shut down about things. I get that. It's a real thing for them. It's a hard thing that they're dealing with. Maybe it's even a hard thing for you, and you understand what anxiety means. But the last thing you want to do is disable a person who has anxiety. Just because they have anxiety doesn't mean that they shouldn't learn how to solve their problems and overcome some of that anxiety, or at least learn how to manage it. They absolutely should. Many of the youth that came to my home did have high levels of anxiety, but they also had habits of defiance, massive habits of defiance, and I had to work on those as well. And many times they would just try to use their neurodiversity as an excuse. Well, I wasn't going to take that as an excuse. They were at my home for a certain type of treatment that would help them launch into the world. I had to prepare them for adulthood, which meant that we couldn't live in the realm of excuses. I couldn't parent based on what excuse could I think of for this negative behavior. No, I had to think, even if they did that because of their neurodiversity, is this going to be okay for them going forward? Should we expect everybody else in the world to have to understand their neurodiversity and give them an extra break because of it? No. That would be socially unacceptable, and it would be me dooming them to disempowerment their entire lives. I wanted them to see themselves as confident, able people who didn't have to be held back by those neurodiversities that they might be experiencing. In fact, many of the youth that came to my home came on multiple different medications for lots of things, including high levels of anxiety. And actually, many of them left my home not on a lot of those medications because they learned the skills that they needed for success. And because I wasn't afraid to say, you don't have to be trapped by this. Let's learn what to do when you start feeling this. Let's go through the thoughts in your head and try to help you make new plans going forward. So that's really what self-government is all about, is identifying what's going on, who am I, where do I want to go, and how do I make a plan to get from here to here. So how do you do that with a person who is experiencing anxiety? I had one child who was a foster child who had a very severe anxiety. Any new idea would just put her head in a spin, constantly overthinking, catastrophizing in her own mind about what might happen. And this happened to her because she actually was very neglected as a child, and she had to handle a lot of problems on her own. She was handling them maybe okay on her own, and then when she came into a safe environment in the level of care that happened before she came to my house, she started realizing the extent of the abuse that she had faced. And then she started worrying now that she was going to experience that abuse again. So actually, her anxiety levels spiked when she was in treatment because suddenly she was safe. Her anxiety levels weren't as high when she wasn't safe, but when she was, she started worrying about not being safe again. And so now everything seemed like a threat for her to not feel safe. And she wanted other people to take away her problems because when she came into a group home, her problems were instantly taken away. So now she didn't ever want to have to deal with problems again, just in general, any problem. And she felt like that if she had to deal with a problem, it would be wrong. So you see where this is going. This is going to set her up for failure in life. She needed to not be neglected and abused, but she needed to learn how to still solve her problems so that she could launch into adulthood. And that was the task that I had to help her with so that she could advance from the placement in my home. I would like to report she did a great job at learning self-government. She had her bumps, ups and downs. She had kleptomania, compulsive lying, anger control issues, as well as ADHD, as well as the high levels of anxiety because of the abuse. So she had a lot of things that she was dealing with, but she was able to transition into a lower level of care, and even her parents got the help that they needed so that she could transition back to that time with her parents, and so that she could be raised the last part of her adolescent years with them, which was really neat. And she was very successful. It was neat to see what she was able to do when she could tell herself, nope, that's a no answer. That's my anxiety. I'm not listening to it. And actually, she reported that over time, she just experienced less anxiety. The more opportunities that a person gets to overcome their anxiety, the less anxiety they have. So our goal as parents and teachers and people who are helping others with anxiety should be to help them have successes overcoming the anxiety, not to keep them protected in their place of anxiety all of the time. So what type of successes did she have? Well, she was corrected sometimes for that anxiety. She was disciplined for having the anxiety in the moment and then was brought back to the skills that she needed instead. So what we did is we pre-taught her the 4 skills, the 4 basic skills of self-government, which are how to follow instructions from us and others and herself, how to accept no answers from us and others and herself, how to accept consequences. When she makes bad choices, there's consequences. And then how to disagree appropriately. Now, we taught her the skills, we practiced the skills, but then came the time for the actual corrections about when she didn't use these skills properly, and she had to use that accepting consequences thing a lot. The more times that she used that, the more confident she became. Now, at first, she resorted to one of her go-to behaviors for when she was so neglected, and that was lying. We had to work through that too. Because when a person has anxiety, they oftentimes resort to lying. So we then had to work through the lying. But soon then she was like, oh, it's just an extra chore. That doesn't matter. Or, yep, you're right. I did do that. She started just accepting it, being more honest because she realized it was totally safe to accept a consequence for her own behavior. This changed everything for her. So how did I do these corrections, and what are the steps to these 4 basic skills? I would love to teach you more about these things. There are many videos on this channel that go into details there. The very first thing that you're going to need though, and probably that the child you're working with is going to need, is an understanding of what calm really feels like for them. And that they can choose to be calm even when it seems like they can't control everything else around them. So there is a Calm Parenting Toolkit that I would like to give you for free. On my website, teachingselfgovernment.com, I have a Calm Parenting Toolkit right now on the homepage that has 10 tools for calmness that you can use and your child can use in those discipline moments to tell yourselves that everything's going to be okay. It's okay to be disciplined, even if you have anxiety, and it's okay for your anxiety to decrease. It's okay to learn calmness. And a person, when they do that, becomes empowered. So go to teachingselfgovernment.com and find more information there.